Today is an exchange of views with the representatives of the European Festival Association, shortly EFA. It is the foremost association of European festivals of arts and one of the oldest networks for culture worldwide. Created in 1952 by Denise de Rougemont, it will celebrate 60 years of its existence next year. Earlier this afternoon, we considered what the role of culture might be in EU external actions. The work of EFA is a concrete example of how arts and cultural events can make links between neighbouring countries. And today we have with us Mrs. Catherine Deventer, the Secretary General of EFA, to tell us more about the organisation's work. Please, Catherine, you have the floor.
Thank you. Honourable Chair, distinguished members of the European Parliament, dear colleagues in my back. The question indeed is what role for culture in society and what role for the European Parliament, for the European Union to play in this framework. And my presentation is a very concrete example actually of how the sector is working. My presentation is about festivals in Europe, and the main question is how festivals' potential can be harnessed more efficiently, their power towards audiences, business, politics, through a programme the European Festival proposes called Europe for Festivals, Festivals for Europe. Festivals are visited by millions of audiences, citizens of Europe every day. They are sites of cultural expression for a certain place in a certain time, for European identity in the making, from Nizhny Novgorod to Estoril, from Bergen to Athens, from Montenegro to Brussels. In all these places, you find your home, actually, your electorate. At the same time, only 5% of the EU's population is participating in public debate about European affairs. EU elections participation has been constantly decreasing from 62% in 1979 to 43% in 2009. Europe, it seems, left its citizens behind. In the EU's proposal, for example, for the European Year of Citizens 2013, there is no reference to the cultural dimension and cultural rights and its potential to build European audiences. A paradox? Second, there has always been and is and will be an international practice of artists and an amazing international practice of cooperation, co-production, artists in residencies, cross-border mobility reflected in artists' everyday life, and of course in the programme of festivals. At the same time, no Europe waiting, as a film said this afternoon about migration from outside European Union borders into the European fortress. And, as Baroness Ashton's office seems still not to have a department competent for cultural affairs in EU external relations, and the promotion of Europe's image of the world is without culture. Isn't it a paradox? Third, festivals bring together people of all walks of life together. Intercultural dialogue, it seems, is not a buzzword, but it is a reality celebrated in cultural organisations, in festivals, outreach programmes in the cities, in the streets, in concert halls, everywhere. At the same time, we face an immense increase of nationalism, populism, stereotypes, growing far-right anti-migration trends, linked within many countries an age of public sector austerity. No European engagement, no affection, no emotion, no solidarity. Where is Europe? There is immense evidence on the direct economic impact of festivals and cultural institutions in the cultural industry, so-called. Festivals provide jobs and growth on a local level. We know that. In addition, new studies show that the total indirect impact of cultural participation on health, on social skills, mental well-being is likely to be even much bigger than the already remarkable direct ones, as Pierluigi Sacco told us during the Culture Forum in October here in Brussels recently. At the same time, the Europe 2020 agenda for smart, sustainable and inclusive growth, in this strategy we have to dig deep to find a place for culture, let alone an explicit reference. Does Europe not follow these trends? Festivals bring the big names of artists to their podia. Thanks to their immense media attention, they are in the position to communicate messages to a broad public, young and old ones. On top, their boards and so-called circle of friends are equipped with leading business people and politicians from the local and regional as well as national level. They meet for receptions, for galas, for societal exchanges, and are in daily contact with festival directors. At the same time, Europe in Brussels is looking for new forms of partnerships with businesses and is seeking for European public opinion leaders, in a way authoritative voices and spokespersons. These leaders are lacking, it seems, as platforms where their voice is brought to a massive public. Why doesn't the EU take more advantage of festivals? Festivals welcome thousands of artists on their podia. Artists drive forward concepts of innovation and creativity as the European Year 2009 documented. At the same time, the objectives defined in the innovation policy does not refer to the arts or cultural practices. How come this ignorance? The Creative Europe programme, at least as far as we know it or have heard about it, includes creative industries and the cultural non-for-profit sector. Will the EU really invest into the innovation of the creative capacity of the arts sector in this programme? Because let's not forget, there is culture and there are cultural industries. Let us please go for a real programme for culture. There are 800 festivals applying for an EU grant every year, ready to position themselves and their activities in a European framework. There is a handful of festivals that actually are successful. In no other strand in the culture programme, the success rate is so low, with only 8%. We could prolong this list and speak about the impacts of a vibrant, democratic, inclusive cultural sector on society's well-being and policy making that is not reflecting this knowledge. And I'm aware of the fact that, of course, I'm giving a very simplified picture here. And of course, let's not create any misunderstandings. We know that culture cannot solve all challenges we face in today's world, and it should not. It should not step in where politics, for example, failed. But it is clear, and we heard that this afternoon many times, that we have to understand together how powerful the arts and culture are in society and what culture can do in Europe's integration process and what it cannot do. So the main 4 questions the EU is facing regarding a festivals policy, according to our opinion, is first, how to create conditions in which festivals keep flourishing. Second, how to benefit from festivals' dynamics, impacts and high visibility. Third, how to turn the attitude of festivals into a positive energy for Europe. Hundreds of festivals in all cities and regions in Europe. And fourth, among the diverse political levels, what role for the EU? Let's take 1 minute to remind us of the basic starting point of each cultural and in particular, of course, also festivals policy, which is the role of the artist in the creative process. Each programme has to enable the artist's creative development. Let's hope that history doesn't make fool of us. Robin Archer, a leading cultural entrepreneur and artist from Australia, said recently that we are not seen as the century that advocated the utilitarian use of art and artists, or art for the sake of swelling audiences numbers, economic development, tourist statistics, and bragging rights to the detriment of conditions for those whose real value is contingent on a space for thought, sometimes isolation and experiment. Let's make sure, she said, we serve artists in their rights. A festival is an opportunity, and it bears responsibility towards the artist and the audiences. Festivals have an intrinsic task to make artistically strong choices and to invite for thinking, to surprise, and to push boundaries. In actual fact, Bernard Febvre-Darcier, long-standing director of the Avignon Festival, said the festival concept should be reserved for cultural events promoting creativity and international innovation, as it is the true role of a festival to allow artists to initiate projects and activities that would not be performed in the context of ordinary institutions. So my second starting point for each program is to hold festivals to this artistic responsibility. Now, before I come to the role of the EU, let me give you a brief example of festivals and artists pioneering in European integration, which is actually the European Festivals Association, Ms. Chairwoman, you have mentioned. Set up in 1952 by Igor Markievich, an artist, and philosopher Denis de Rougemont, the association is the oldest network which today is representing more than 111 festivals. We ask, as the cross-border level collaboration from the European to the local level, to festivals and to Europe, what role for EU in cultural policies? The money will always be little, no doubt. We suggest no wrong modesty, though. The EU has competence and a responsibility to safeguard Europe's cultural diversity. It needs to develop a common sense of belonging among European citizens. Do we let culture go, and therewith Europe, and let nationalism take over? The question that we have to answer is not only how we have to save Europe, but we have to give replies to why actually we are going to save Europe. But in my framework, how festivals' potential can be more harnessed more efficiently to this process of a democratic Europe. In this context, we suggest, Ms. Chairwoman, a very concrete programme, Europe for Festivals, Festivals for Europe. A programme which aims at a more active involvement of festivals in a joint promotion of Europe and its cultural potential. Its aim is to create a positive energy within the festivals landscape, where now hundreds of festivals are applying and only a handful get granted. A new programme that has to offer festivals an attractive strand to be part of Europe's integration process. The programme foresees several elements with one key output, which is a Europe for Festivals guide. This guide is published as a book, as a site, and as an application every second year. It's including two main target groups. One is the label, an EU label European Festival, and an EU award, Festivals for Europe, which is assigned to a small group of festivals. The programme will deliver positive results to festivals and to the European Union. It will start with a few and make many festivals part of this dynamic. It will involve local networks and partners which form part of the labelling nomination system. It will include the big emblematic festivals as well as the small niche festivals. It will deliver a strong image of Europe towards so many festivals that are included in the programme, and it will bring these festivals to Europe, and festivals bring Europe to the citizens. To conclude timely with the budget discussions in the European Parliament and the Council and the new generation of EU programmes Ms. Vassiliou will present here in this House tomorrow, we would like to ask, dear President and members of the European Parliament, to join you, President, in our joint call for a policy and pilot project for festivals promoted together with the European Festivals Association. Second, we underline our readiness to support the Commission's budget proposal for culture for the next generation of EU culture programmes, and we call for a strong, really strong component for culture and a strong support for cultural actors, in particular in the non-for-profit sector. Together with other colleagues, including the We Are More campaign, we also call for an improved recognition of arts and culture in the regional development and structural funds. Third, then I'm almost finished, we offer to members of the European Parliament to visit festivals in your country and engage in dialogue with local decision makers about the role of the EU and national and local ministries to support culture. Here is where the power and financial responsibility for cultural activities lies, in cities and in regions. Fourth, and therewith I conclude, we all invite you, of course, to the 60th anniversary of the European Festivals Association. We are going to celebrate in Bergen in Norway under the motto, Celebrate the Arts, Transform People, Imagine the World. I'm glad, of course, in the minutes that remain to receive questions and to distribute after this hearing more papers in written to your attention. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Seventer. Well, of course, You went very fast, but we all understood what you said. Europe for Festivals, Festivals for Europe, Programme for Europe, and I have signed it already. Now, I'd just like to remind you, because all the coordinators are here now, for the next budgetary year, we're going to carry out a pilot project, a pilot programme. That means Europe for Festivals, Festivals for Europe. That's what it's called. And it's just like with the Lux Prize. We will meet people there at that event whom we will never see anywhere else, and who will be able to make them aware of our project and our visions and the vision of Robert Schuman. I think it's a great story. It's an excellently prepared idea by your assistants and your colleagues, and I think we should deal with this project. Now, we probably haven't got any time left today, and I don't think anybody would dare ask a question now, because we are at the end of our meeting. But I thank you very much, Catherine, and your colleagues, and we will take it on board, and certainly in the next budgetary discussion, and in also the discussion on programmes that we're going to start next year, we will of course include this in our discussions. Thank you very much, both of you, and to everybody else. And this is in fact at the end of today's agenda. Now we get to the coordinator.